Hi everyone in English 1301 and English 2323. It's Dr. E and I'm here with an instructional video that's going to walk you through the guidelines and expectations for the writing collection assignment. I want to start off by saying that this is not due this week. So as you are watching this, if you are watching it on the assigned week, it is not due, but I want to give you plenty of notice and plenty of time to kind of think through the assignment, start planning, making any adjustments to your schedule so that you're able to complete this assignment without too much stress. So what I plan to do is walk through the handout or the guidelines with the rubric and then go over a few materials that I think will be useful. So know that I am making a joint video for the literature course as well as the composition courses. So if you see things that don't necessarily relate to the course that you are taking, then just please ignore. There will be some separate materials for each of those courses, okay? But the ideas are pretty similar. All right, so if I go to the guidelines and expectations, this is what it looks like. So this whole idea for this assignment is just to go back and take a look at the writing that you've completed so far in the semester and to revise it, right? So an important element of the writing process really needs to be revision. And I know that sometimes when you are out of time and you're pressed for getting things done and the assignment deadline is creeping up, sometimes revision is the one thing that kind of gets pushed aside, right? We may not take that extra time because we don't have it. And so what I'm hoping to do is kind of push us to think about the importance of that and to really implement it in our writing process moving forward. Fingers crossed, that's what I'm hoping for. So this assignment is taking things that we've already written in the past and just revising, editing, updating, taking that final big step of going through with very fresh eyes, any new ideas, any new writing, and submitting that as a collection, okay? So our goal is to take those written responses and revise them, okay? So again, much of the time is going to be in the process of revising because you've already written those original responses and now it's just going back and looking at feedback, looking with fresh eyes at your work and then resubmitting it after a few additional steps. So I want to make sure that we understand that in any class, taking work that you've completed previously and submitting it again for that same class for a different class is typically considered plagiarism in academic writing. But this is something that I am assigning. So I'm giving you that permission to take something that we worked on previously so that we can rethink it, revise it, take all of those steps, and then resubmit it. But there are going to be some additional elements for this work. So you know, for the future, this is just something that I would love for you to implement in your writing process. We don't always see the errors in our writing when we're going back, you know, and looking at our work, unless we have those fresh eyes, or if we have somebody else looking over our ideas, we have tutors or, you know, friends or family, that kind of thing. So effectively communicating in written format does require that we utilize some of these kinds of strategies. So I know people in different jobs. So if you're thinking, well, how else is this going to help me? I know folks in different jobs in different areas in business and academia and engineering and things such as that, where writing is somehow involved. And if that writing is going to be shared with other people, they take that time to revise and edit, whether it is an email because the email is going out to quite a few people, or, you know, a report that you're submitting to your boss. That revision process can really help, even if it's something as simple as an email, right? All right, so let's move on to kind of thinking about what new writing is going to be required for this assignment. So what you'll want to do is create an abstract paragraph, and that's one paragraph per revised response. Okay, so you'll need 2 abstract paragraphs. You'll need to create a works cited page, right? So we're looking at this as our research paper. Essentially, we're utilizing research. Some of that we've already done in the original responses, right? We've had those quotes and we're looking at different sources. So again, you've done a lot of the work, but now it's taking that and putting into it a bit more of a formal kind of format, which requires a works cited, right? When we're dealing with MLA formatting guidelines. So that's any sources you reference, and this is particularly for the lit courses. Anytime you mention biographical details from our course text, that needs to be, that's a separate entry for your works cited page, right? So I know that's annoying, but it's required, right? You need to give credit to whoever wrote that text that you're pulling from. So our biographies are not written by the authors that we're reading, right? So we need to make sure that we have separate entries for that. Okay. So again, I just want to remind you here, you've done a lot of this work. So I don't want you to look at this as, a very huge research paper. This is just you taking some things and reworking and revising and rethinking, okay? So make sure you use the template. I don't know how to say this any differently than I've been saying it all semester. So please just use the template that I provide. Remember that the Purdue OWL website is just great. It has MLA information. There are examples of everything from works cited to quotations, and everything is also included in the MLA help module that's in our content area in D2L. Okay. So a little bit more information about the abstract paragraphs. So those are generally, I'm thinking of, at least in English and composition studies, abstract paragraphs usually come before an article. Somebody writes an article about this scholarship or these new ideas, and an abstract comes before the article, kind of giving a sense of what is this article about? What are the author's main ideas? Which is really helpful because then you know what's coming, you get a sense of it, you know what it's about. This is especially helpful for, somebody like me. If I'm doing research and I'm looking for a particular topic under literature studies or composition studies, that abstract paragraph lets me know if this article is going to help in terms of the research that I need. That helps you as well when you get into using kinds of academic sources. Those abstracts give you a sense of what's to come so that you're not wasting however long reading an article that really doesn't pertain to the topic that you've chosen. This abstract works in a similar way in terms of it's giving your audience an idea of what they're about to read, right? You're going to say, in week 4, we wrote about this topic, and my original process was to brainstorm, and I did take the time to revise, but then going back to do this, I'm feeling a little differently. I changed a few things here or there. You're giving your audience some context for that response that you have revised and edited. So you'll need one of those abstract paragraphs before each revised response. Okay, so include the week in the original response, or include the week that original response was due. That just, again, is helping provide more context. All right, and your paragraph will be in italics, that abstract paragraph, because it offsets it from the rest of the document. And I'll show you an example, so don't worry too much about that just yet. Okay, so your portfolio is going to include 2 written responses. Each needs to be at least 3 paragraphs. Now, this is something that I'm pretty sure everything I've assigned so far has been at least 3 paragraphs, and if not, that means you might have to write just a little bit more, push your ideas a little bit, but not too terribly much, right? So each entry needs a source. So if that was not something that was addressed, or something that you neglected to include, or if it's something that even wasn't required, you need to go back and make sure that you're adding some research from whatever sources you think are relevant. Each entry includes that abstract paragraph in italics, okay? And I put here, I include you to add first person about the actual content of the post, right? So what did you originally think about the topic? What do you think about it now? What kind of revisions did you do? So just kind of broad, ideas about what the reader is going to then see in your revised response. The document should be an MLA guideline, so it's one single document including both of these revised responses. It needs a heading, a header, a title, not a title page. We don't do that in MLA anymore. It should be 12-point font, Times New Roman, etc., etc. This is included in the template. A works cited needs to be included. So again, there's a link here for examples, and they have a generator that will help you set up a citation. But remember, you really need to double check the accuracy of that. All kinds of information at this website. The portfolio should be submitted, and portfolio is just another word for collection. Okay, it should be submitted in D2L in the assignments area, and it really needs to be in this format. Do not submit anything other than this format, or it won't be graded, right? So please make sure that you're double checking this. And I put here, consider making a tutoring appointment. There's a link here if you'd like that. And it's just, again, getting a fresh set of eyes on your work, right? I can look at the same document 20, 30 times and not catch some of the errors that somebody else with fresh eyes looking at my work will be able to catch. That's why the best authors that we've ever known paid a lot of money to editors to catch those mistakes. We don't have to be perfect. We just need to know where to go to get some help so that the final product is the absolute best that we can submit. You're watching the instructional video, so you're moving in the right direction, right? And do be sure to ask me questions if you have any about this project. Just make sure you're asking in advance of the due date and time, right? So that you have plenty of time to understand the guidelines and move forward. All right, so this is just a general kind of rubric. So all the criteria are over here. And of course we want to be in this column, striving for the advanced or awesome submissions. And so that is going to be a high A to a high B, right? That range that's there. So if you're meeting all the guidelines and requirements, you'll be in this column. So make sure that you're reviewing this information when you're able. I do want to take a little bit of time to jump to some of the resources. Okay, so the first is going to be an example. This is from a previous student who allowed me to use her work, right? I have removed her name, so it's anonymous, but her formatting is great. She has the ideas that are there. I just want you to get a sense of what it needs to look like on the page. I find that really helpful. All right, so this is the example. And so you see writing collection is here. And the first thing that she shares is an abstract paragraph. And you'll notice that it's in italics. So it looks a little bit different, right, than the normal text on the page. And you'll see there's nothing fancy. There's no bolded title. There's no colored font. Everything, there's no extra space between her abstract and the beginning of her revised response. It goes straight into that. I don't know how else to say it. I've said it before. MLA is just really boring. Right? The ideas are what should be interesting and important and exciting, not the way everything appears on the page. Okay, so she has her first abstract, which is pretty detailed. You need 4 to 5 sentences here. She did a little bit more, and that's okay. And then she jumps right into her revised response, which is about Ron Finley's work, those of you in comp. And then, so I'm scrolling down through her first revised response. You'll see that there's a space or two here, and then she goes into her second abstract paragraph and then jumps right into the revised response. Okay, so we have the italics for the abstract and we have the regular font for the revised response. I'm scrolling, trying not to go too quickly. I just want to scroll to the very end so that you can see that at the very end comes the works cited page. The works cited always appears on its very own page with works cited as the title at the very top. It's the last page. It takes up its own page. And then you have the citations, which appear in a format that's a little funky. The first line is always pushed all the way over to the left with the author's last name, comma, first name. And then the line below it for that same entry is always going to be indented. This is called a hanging indent. Microsoft Word sets this up very specifically, so you don't want to hit the tab key to indent that space. You're going to on the second line. So, okay, if it looks like this, so this is not properly set up because this line is not indented. So I'm going to right click in Microsoft Word and I'm going to go to the paragraph option in that drop down menu. It's going to open a window that looks pretty familiar, right? And so what you'll select here, you'll see that there are options, and what you want to select is hanging, and that will, of course it's not doing it as an example, it will indent that for you. It's already set up in the document as hanging, so just make sure that you are following that. Our tendency is to reverse that. We indent all of our paragraphs and every line below it in a paragraph is left justified. We reverse that for a works cited. That's so that the author's last name is really sticking out on the left-hand side of the screen. And it's easy for somebody like me reading your work to jump to your works cited and find a particular author's citation. You got to just frame this in terms of, I read an MLA, so you want to write in MLA with some of this stuff. There is a reason for it. You're not doing this just to fulfill some stupid standards that are set by MLA. It does make sense. If you have questions, definitely let me know. All right. So this is the template, and this is for the literature course, but comp, you will have a separate one. And so again, just click up here, update your last name, double click outside of that. You'll want to put writing collection here, and I'll update that. It's something I used to call the portfolio, but I've changed it because it was confusing for some folks. So your abstract is going to go here. You just delete this and start entering your own. Do the same for your second, and there are little instructions in here. Scroll down and you have an example works cited that you just update. You just want to make sure that this ends up at the top of the page, no matter what text you enter up here. I want to note that in each of the templates, you have completed citations, just saying. So good luck. Let me know if you have questions.